The Mountain and Climber. There was once a small village nestled at the base of a mighty mountain. The mountain towered above the land, majestic, unmoving, and cold. For generations, the villagers stared up at it in awe. No one ever dared climb it. They believed the mountain was cursed, impossible to conquer. But one day, a young man named Kian arrived in the village. He wasn't born there, and he hadn't heard the old tales. When he first looked up at the mountain, he didn't feel fear. He felt something else. A challenge. "Why has no one climbed that?" he asked an old farmer. The farmer shook his head. "Many have tried. Some were strong. Some were smart. But none came back. The mountain takes what it wants." Kian smiled. "Then maybe it's time someone takes something back." That night, the village murmured. Some said he was foolish. Others called him brave. But Kian didn't listen. The next morning, he packed food, water, rope, and resolve. And with a final glance at the rising sun, he took his first step up the mountain. The first few hours were easy. Trees lined the lower trails. Birds sang in the canopy, and the breeze was kind. But as Kian ascended, the path narrowed. The wind grew harsher. The trees gave way to rocks and ice. He slipped more than once, cut his hand, sprained an ankle. But every time he fell, he got back up when his body ached. He pressed on. When clouds blocked his view, he remembered why he started. Midway through the climb, he found a small shelter. Inside was an old journal. The pages were brittle, but the words were clear. "I made it this far, but fear froze me. I turned back." Signed, Arlo, 1938. Kian closed the book and whispered, "I won't stop here." He slept that night under the stars, the cold biting at his bones. In his dreams, the mountain whispered, "You are not strong enough." But Kian didn't listen to whispers. He listened to will. On the third day, the real test began. Snow fell heavy. His fingers stiffened. The path disappeared beneath fresh white. One wrong step could mean the end. As he dug into the ice with his pickaxe, he heard a rumble. An avalanche? No, just the mountain testing him again. "Is it all you got?" Kian shouted into the wind. His voice echoed like thunder. Hours later, exhausted and frozen, he collapsed. His mind said, "Sleep." His body begged, "Stop." But somewhere deep inside him, a different voice rose. Quiet but steady. "It always seems impossible until it's done." Nelson Mandela. Kian's eyes opened. His fists clenched. With slow, painful steps, he stood again. Finally, on the fifth morning, the wind calmed, the clouds parted, and the peak, sharp and glorious, was just ahead. One last push. He climbed with torn gloves and bleeding hands. The air was thin. Every breath felt like fire. But he didn't stop. He couldn't. And then, just like that, he was there, on top. He looked out over the world below. Villages, rivers, valleys, all of it, spread before him like a map of victory. Tears froze on his cheeks. He did it, not because he was the strongest, not because he was the smartest, but because he refused to quit. When Kian returned to the village days later, the people gasped. Children ran to him. Elders wept. No one had ever come back. "What did you find up there?" one boy asked. Kian smiled. "I found that the mountain isn't the enemy. Doubt is. Fear is. The climb was hard. But the hardest battle was with myself." That night, the village held a feast. Not just for Kian, but for a possibility. For the first time in decades, they believed the mountain could be climbed. And it all started because one person refused to believe the impossible. Moral of the story: the greatest mountains in life are not the ones outside us, they're the ones within. Fear, doubt, excuses, those are the true obstacles. Every dream worth chasing will demand strength, sacrifice, and courage. But the reward? It changes you. It teaches you that the only real limits are the ones you accept. As Nelson Mandela said, "It always seems impossible until it's done." Now ask yourself, what's your mountain? And what's stopping you from climbing it?